If the Alexandrian library had not burned, imagine for a moment. The time is the 3rd century BC. Alexandria, rising on the banks of the Nile, beats like the heart of the world. Merchants in the ports, philosophers in the streets, birds in the sky. And in the heart of the city, a structure considered the temple of knowledge, the Library of Alexandria. Here, not only books, but the thoughts of humanity were gathered. The works of Greek philosophers, the knowledge of Egyptian priests, the mathematical calculations of Babylon, the observations of Indian astronomers. It was the first place where all the world's knowledge was gathered under one roof. An estimated 500,000 scrolls recorded science, philosophy, medicine, history, and art. But history sometimes has a way of extinguishing humanity's brightest lights. The library has been damaged repeatedly over the centuries. First, in 48 BC, when Julius Caesar's armies set fire to the port of Alexandria, the flames spread to the library. Then, in the Roman period, followed by the religious conflicts that followed Christianity, it suffered the final blow. And one day, the Temple of Knowledge was no more. Along with the ash carried by the wind, a portion of humanity was lost. So, what would have happened if it hadn't burned? Perhaps humanity would never have experienced the Dark Ages, because on those shelves were hidden the lost discoveries of Archimedes, the astronomical calculations of Hypatia, the records of ancient Indian medicine, and the knowledge of Africa, Mesopotamia, and Persia. Some of the knowledge rediscovered millennia later in mathematics, physics, and medicine was perhaps already written within those scrolls. If the Library of Alexandria hadn't burned, perhaps the history of science would have been written differently. The Renaissance could have emerged much sooner, without waiting 1,500 years. World maps would have been more accurate, and astronomy would have advanced much faster. Perhaps the ideas of Galileo, Copernicus, and Newton would have already been discussed by scholars of that era. Perhaps what we call modern science today would have begun 1,000 years earlier. But the issue isn't just knowledge. The loss of the library also meant the erasure of humanity's cultural memory. There, Egyptian legends and Greek philosophy stood side by side. East and West spoke at the same table for the first time. This wasn't just a building, it was a meeting of civilizations. If the library hadn't burnt down, perhaps we wouldn't have divided human history into us and them. Knowledge would have been the shared heritage of people, not borders. And today we wouldn't still speak of the wisdom rising from the ashes of the Library of Alexandria, because that wisdom would never be lost. But there's still hope, because every new scientist, every new student, somehow keeps the legacy of that lost library alive. Every discovery, every book carries a spark from that extinguished fire. The Library of Alexandria burned, but humanity's desire for knowledge never waned. And perhaps one day, in the light of that fire, we will rediscover what we have lost.